What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you once again for tuning into this episode of the Main Idea podcast, where I sit down with a special guest today, creator of the Broke Agent, and one of my very first training clients of all time, Eric Simon. Eric went from failing the real estate exam 2 times to then escaping to social media as a place to get away from the failures and challenges of the industry, where he began to provide humor and insights from his own head, gained some traction, and has since grown into an account that reaches over 500,000 people across all his platforms and websites, and is perhaps the most recognizable voice of humor within the industry. It's an awesome story of someone going all in, putting all their efforts in one spot, and never giving up to achieve what they want to do. I hope you enjoy this. I absolutely did. Without further ado, Eric Simon. Eric freaking Simon, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm overjoyed to be here with you today, especially considering we're wearing the same exact headphones, which I feel like is kind of a knock to our greatness as individuals.
I think these are standard podcast starter headphones. Like these are the go-to headphones and mic that everyone has. You have a nicer mic than I do, though.
I do have a nicer mic. It's
Yeah.
significantly superior to yours, but that, I mean, neither here nor there.
I like it when it's like angled like that.
It's because otherwise I feel like that's not very attractive,
Right, exactly.
So I try to do it
in your face.
A little bit of composition there on the shot to make it appealing to the thousands and thousands of YouTube subscribers that there are that listen into this,
That will be coming for sure.
Exactly. Well, I want to just get started with something that I find very important. And it has to do with a special movie kind of rooted World War II era. One of your favorites by far.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me about Hacksaw Ridge?
HSR.
As HSR, as they call it.
AKA the Ridge.
Any other nicknames for
it? No, I mean, that's all I got. It's like you said, is it even a World War II movie? I mean, I've seen it so many times. I feel like I don't even know what it's about at this point.
If I'm gonna be like completely honest, I've seen I've seen it referenced on your story so many times on your on personal account and Broke Agent, and I was like, I gotta see this. I mean, this thing must be just a masterpiece, knowing you. I made it all but 3 minutes into that thing, and I was sitting in my living room going like, this might be actually the worst movie that I've ever seen in my life. There's no way on earth.
That's a ridiculous statement. I am not gonna sit here and tell you that Hacksaw Ridge is a 10 out of 10. It's probably like a 7.1. It's an Andrew Garfield movie. It is a World War II movie, and they're basically trying to climb up this ridge and without being killed by Japanese soldiers. And Andrew Garfield is a religious man, and he can't shoot anybody, so he doesn't have a gun. So he becomes like the medic. And basically on my story, what Abe is referencing for the people at home, because no one's going to know what the hell we're talking about, is I've been doing a bit on my Instagram where I just talk about how much I love Hacksaw Ridge, and I'm constantly watching Hacksaw Ridge, and I'm getting my girlfriend to watch Hacksaw Ridge, and my dog's watching Hacksaw Ridge. And, it lands with some people, and with others, they're just like, what the fuck is this even funny? Like, is this a good movie? So I think you fall into that category where you knew that there was something humorous behind it, but didn't know exactly what.
But I think, it's an interesting starting point, but it does speak to, like, you have a knack for this sense of humor, right? And obviously it's connected with, at this point, almost 500,000 people, which is pretty impressive. But like, it's a mix of satire, but it's also just very honest, but to the point where it can be almost confusing sometimes.
Correct. I have a Hacksaw Ridge shirt. Did you see that? Like,
no, but I kind of wish that
Hacksaw Ridge in a shirt that says Hacksaw Ridge, and it's just so funny because it's such a random movie. That's why that's the point of it.
I think that if at the beginning it actually just had you say everything that you just said, I would have felt much better about watching it. But I got a couple minutes in and I was like, I almost have to call you and just talk to you about, like, talk me off the cliff of whether or not it's a real movie.
Yeah,
but that's neither here nor there. Right. People will, I think, be familiar with you by the time that they are listening to this at this point. But for those that don't know, I used to train Eric at Equinox. This was at this point years ago, right? But I trained you at a very interesting time because this was pre-Broke Agent. This was pre the explosion of the account, and really at like the inception, where I feel like in your training sessions, you would actually just mouth this stuff off. Like you said, these are thoughts in your head, that the frustrations of the real estate industry, the comedy about it, and then the broke agent really just developed from that. Like you putting all these thoughts in your head just into a place where other people could find them. But talk to me about like the beginning of this. I mean, from failing the real estate exam to
Right.
being
Twice.
the voice twice, to being the voice of humor and enjoyment for like basically the real estate industry. I
Yeah.
don't personally know a single agent at
Good
any
for you.
stage in their career who hasn't heard of you.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty impressive, right?
It is. Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah,
what
like you
happened?
said, you caught me at a post breakup pre broke agent phase, which was
Actually,
probably
during the breakup.
during the breakup.
During the
That's
breakup,
right.
which
Yeah,
was
it's like
inspiring time.
it wasn't even that bad of a breakup. Like I was dating this girl for like a year and a half. Just looking back on it, I mean, everything. It was just like the most important thing, because I like career wise, I'd worked at the Laugh Factory Comedy Club, and then I got my real estate license and was working as an assistant for a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And at that time, like career wasn't that important to me. It was basically just like socializing in Los Angeles, like working out, being with my girlfriend. Like I was like a post-grad douchebag, basically, at Equinox.
Not much has changed.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, I'm a little bit more than a post-grad now. I'd say
a little older.
young adult, at least at this point. And yeah, so the breakup happened, and you and I were constantly just joking about like digital game stuff at first. Which
is for which will never make sense to anyone, because what that means is basically over analyzing your Tinder escapades.
Hinge, text conversations, Snapchat, Facebook pokes. Basically, we had an entire system of like the importance of digital communication with women, and I was trying to navigate to successfully like not make her jealous. This is my ex-girlfriend, but just like let her know I'm doing okay without overtly showing her that I'm doing okay, and trying to make her look like I'm doing okay. And keep in mind,
we're like 4 minutes in and we already sound completely insane. So this is right on.
I haven't had this conversation since I've spoken with you last. But keep in mind, she was working out at the same gym that we were training at. So in the back of my head, I'm constantly thinking she's going to walk in any second. And like, that's why we were always by the bench press.
I mean, strategically,
we had quadrants.
Insane. Yeah, we had mapped out basically in our own heads, the layout of the gym and how we would need to position ourselves in the event that said ex-girlfriend did appear.
Correct.
And then how we were going to, as a team, handle the interaction.
Correct. Which maybe took place twice in the 2 years that this was happening. But you had an entire quadrant system where you would say like, we have a siding L2 by the elliptical.
Right. Yep.
And then they'd be like, okay, cool. Now we're going to go do lunges like on the opposite side of the gym then. So it's basically like clockwork. But yeah, we always had fun training sessions where we were talking about like the weight of a text versus like a Facebook chat versus a phone call versus a Snapchat. And I ended up like writing 10 to 20 pages, 5 pages of a book called The Digital Game that was just like mapping all this out.
Which, for those again that don't understand, is a knock on Neil Strauss's best-selling book, The Game, but a twist on the digital landscape and how insane it is to actually be trying to establish somewhat of a real relationship in that. Like,
well, just space. Now, like think about our parents, and we would talk about this too. Like when our parents would go try to date a girl, they would call like the girl's parents or something and then go pick them up. And then there was no communication. And then you just kind of had to wait for another phone call on the house phone. Like us dealing with like a breakup or something, you're dealing with so much noise that's already out there. I remember just incessantly checking like Facebook and Instagram, being like, oh fuck, she just posted, she's at the beach, she's having fun. Like I wanted her to post a picture of her literally crying on the ground, weeping. Like that's what I was looking for.
I can't stop thinking about Eric.
Exactly. Can't stop thinking about Eric. I can't wait to see him at the gym. I'm crying my eyes out thinking about it every single day. So that's where
that's not the world that we live in.
No, it's definitely not. So that's basically like the first comedy stuff that we were talking about.
Right.
And then I think just from like, I was always decent at social media. Like I was always posting really funny Facebook comments. I know that sounds stupid, but back in the day, like posting funny Facebook comments on people's walls and recording videos was like a fun activity. Now Facebook's just like a publishing mechanism, right? Like it's
Well,
kind of
and
just
you
like,
had I don't know if people know, but in college, right, you started it's kind of like a comedy blog geared towards sports, right?
oh yeah, the Pudgy Caddy. Yeah.
And that actually had traction. So like
Yeah.
there was something there that was telling you that like, okay, I've done this before. I know from like factually that I'm funny to people.
Correct.
Every funny person at some point, they realize that like what they're saying or the way that they communicate or their delivery, it makes people laugh. And it's not like an ego thing. It's just most of the time you could put something on someone's wall or in their comment thread or whatever. It's actually going to be funny and they're actually going to share it.
Right.
And you knew that from before.
Yes. So my testing was basically like I was just savvy on Facebook.
Mhm.
Like I would just post funny statuses, all of which I've now had to delete because looking back in 2008, you would say stuff like Eric's excitement is, you know, eating a penis or something like that, right? Or like someone would hack my
Hilarious.
yeah. I mean, someone would hack.
Top-notch comedy.
Look, this is not coming
Wow.
from me. I just mean someone would
Oh, yeah.
hack your Facebook status and say something like that.
Right,
So
right.
now I look back and see all these statuses and have to delete them. But anyway,
That is not the moment where you empirically knew you were funny.
yeah, I got 6 likes on that
Yeah.
and knew I was, you know, a Netflix special away. And then I started to get my real estate license and never really liked real estate. Like you could
Well,
tell. Like
started to get is an important that means that it was not the typical route of like studied, passed, moved, like immediately start working.
people fail the real estate exam every
I mean, you had a ludicrously insane lady working at the place that you're at.
Correct. That
It
is also
was-
true. Yes.
I don't think
had
I've ever seen an individual who had more stress placed on them by someone else than your day-to-day interactions with this lady at the desk.
Yes, absolutely. So there was that involved and not really knowing what I was doing. So once you get your real estate license, you're kind of thrown in with little to no knowledge about what inspections are, how to negotiate a contract, how to set up showings, what to say to the listing agent. And it's all these like really awkward social interactions. And when you're 24, 25, when I first got licensed, no one has respect for you too. Like the average age of a realtor is 55. So
Right.
I just didn't know what I was doing, extremely uncomfortable. And then a friend of mine named Wes, who worked at the same brokerage as mine, said, hey, we should do like property websites and help agents build websites, but I need help with my marketing. And I said, let's do like a funny real estate blog.
Right.
And then we called it the Broke Agent. And then it basically became a blog and then a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, now media company of just like the inner monologue of a funny, struggling realtor is how it first started.
How much of like because I know partially just from like training you at that time, it was very clear like that's not what you wanted to do.
Correct.
The selling houses and the open houses and all the stuff that like is now the material for the comedy behind Broke Agent. But what was like the pressure to do that? Was it family pressure to like, hey, you need to get a job, you need to do this? And how much of you was trying to satisfy that? And then how much of you was pulled towards like, I actually think that something can happen with this.
Right.
Even though it's not making money, it doesn't look like it will ever make money kind of thing. Like, how did you like balance that?
That's a great question. So I got into
Yeah,
it.
it is.
Yeah. So I got into it because I knew the receptionist at a brokerage. And I just, once I quit the Laugh Factory, I obviously had to make money. So I became the temporary receptionist at this brokerage and then got hired as an assistant. And then once you become an agent, you're not making money until you actually sell something. But there was always the pull of, I need to keep doing real estate to keep coming up with the content. So when I came up with the Broke Agent, they kind of complemented each other. And I actually did start doing a couple deals, but it was never like maybe a couple months in my entire life did I actually feel like, okay, I'm a real estate agent right now. Like I actually have multiple clients. I have listings. I'm actually like negotiating contracts. I kind of know what I'm doing. I had maybe 2 thoughts in my head ever where I was like, oh shit, like this is my actual job. But a lot of it was, of course, too, I had to make money. And this was my main source of income at the time was selling houses. And in LA, thankfully, if you sell a few condos at, $1 million, $1.5 million, you're getting like a decent commission. So I think like the reason I continued it for so long was in part because I had to continue the content for the broke agent, in part because I had to make money. And I did like enjoy some aspects of it. Like I didn't hate everything. I liked working with my friends. I liked not sitting open houses, but I liked, the feeling of when I could call them and say, you have a accepted offer. They would, it's like the best feeling in the world,
It's kind of interesting that a lot of the material came originally from your least favorite part of the whole thing.
Yes.
At all. Like
Yes.
the open houses just seem, from an outsider looking in, from friends that are involved in the real estate industry, some successful, some that have left, your experience, it seems like the bottom, like the worst part about it by far is foregoing time that you can spend with your friends to go sit in a house where you're not respected for your position. And you're basically like your job, it seems like, could be done by an intercom system that just says like, hey, welcome to 925 Harding Avenue, blah, 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 blah,
For
blah.
some houses, definitely.
And
Yeah.
so the irony is that actually is the thing. That experience sucked ass, but it also created all of the real aspects of like, dude, I'm actually struggling through this kind of thing. I wonder how many other people are doing that. I'm just going to make fun of it.
Correct. Yeah. I think it was at those open houses where I would scroll through Instagram and see nothing but success stories with real estate agents. Because no one at the time was posting, hey, this sucks, or I haven't sold anything, or like no one answered my cold calls. Like all you would see is motivational quotes, people posing in front of their Porsches, just like assholes basically. And you're like, I was like, how the hell is everybody crushing it? Like I read a statistic, this is back then, and this is a common statistic, that 87% of agents fail in the first 5 years. Like what about an agent in Kentucky that isn't in Bel Air right now hosting a $40 million open house, double ending it? Like that's the majority of people. So once I started posting that and seeing the like immediate feedback, I was like, okay, this definitely has legs. But yeah, back to your point about the open houses real quick. Open houses are good for agents. Like if it's your listing, you could pick up buyers. It's fun if it's actually like a house that has prospects coming in and if you're social and in a good mood. But like you said, at the age of 24, 25, when my only focus was when's the next time I'm drinking? When's the next time I could socialize with my friends? I want to watch football right now. Going to sit my boss's dead open house where nobody would walk in was a complete nightmare for sure.
So at what point, like through this, going back to, you're talking about like the growth of the broke agent starts on Instagram, it goes to Twitter, you start a website together. What's like the process of growth through that, not to where you are now, but more like walk me through that first year? Because I feel like that time frame, like the first year that you launch something, you get something going, it's the most frustrating because it's not going to give you any return financially for the most part. You're putting literally everything that you have into it. Every waking second that you can think of something, you're pouring it into this. That's when all of any kind of like disagreements with partners, things like that, are most likely going to arise. And then you also are getting a more specific amount of feedback from the people that are involved, because the number is small enough to where you can hear everyone. At this point, over 350,000 followers on Instagram, you can't read the comments anymore. There's going to be too many. But at that early stage, every voice is so loud. Like, how do you navigate through that and keep your eyes on like, I don't care what these people are saying. I'm going to still do the thing that I know is keeping this original. What was that like first year?
Another great question. You're a hell of an interview. I've done a million of these podcasts, and it's just like, tell me hashtag strategy for Instagram, basically. So at first, there was a lot of problems with my actual real estate business. So my brokerage didn't like it. So we did it completely anonymously because I still was like, I am a real estate agent. This is where the money's coming in. Yeah. If I start something called the broke agent, where I'm constantly like shitting on other agents and, basically exposing my incompetence, this is not going to be good. Like, who's going to want to work with me? Like,
that might hurt my business.
This is the opposite of branding. And I remember like having, my dad wasn't super stoked. They were always super supportive about it, but he was always kind of like, okay, yeah, but what about real estate? Like, okay,
I remember that
you got 80 likes on this Instagram, who cares? Right. And I was always like, but come on, it's
this is an important question too. In that space, right? Like how old was your father at the time?
65.
Right. So you have 6. How do you get a 65-year-old person to understand the potential gravity of like leveraging social media for something. Because you look at even crazy things like Alexander Cooper being the second largest podcast behind Rogan and just signing a buku bucks deal where her podcast is literally talking about dicks.
Yeah.
24/7.
She just signed like she's a baseball player.
She has Forbes 30 under 30. She just did a keynote speaker close out for them. That's crazy. How do you tell your dad who's like, no, look, that you got to hard work, dedication, show up late, leave last. You got to put this in. What did you even say to him at that point?
Well, at the time, social media was so different. There wasn't Instagram stories. There wasn't like this huge influencer network. Like, yeah, there was like Bachelorette contestants posting about like fit tea and stuff, but there wasn't as many opportunities as there is now. So I didn't even really know how to explain it. I just remember like I had one brainstorming sesh with, and I was like coming up with all these like real estate jokes and scenarios. I was like, oh, we could do skits. We could do YouTube videos. This could be a podcast. This could be like an entire media company. But first, let's like grow the socials. It's merchandise. And I basically was just like, oh, I'm going to sell merch, which I do, but that is not going to make you rich, you know, unless you're doing like Barstool numbers or something like that. So the conversation was always kind of like, again, super supportive, but always just like, okay, but when is it going to bring in money? Like, okay, now you have 50,000 followers. Where's the money? You know, like this is, you know, you still have to focus on real estate. And then I would start doing like social media consulting and other stuff to make money. But it was definitely difficult. I mean, it's not difficult now because now this is like my full-time thing, but even like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was still kind of a little bit back and forth real estate broke agent. So kind of all over the place.
I feel like there's a couple of things in there. One thing I want to talk about is this like merchandise thing, because I feel like I would at this point 100% consider you an entrepreneur, right? You've created this entire thing for yourself. It is now your full-time income. This is what you do.
Yes.
I feel like in the early stages in a bit of business, before you start to actually see how it can make money for you or turn into something real, there's this moment where conceptually you think the most important thing is like your branding, your logo, and merchandise.
Yep.
And you're just like, I got it. Well, if I don't have a logo, like people aren't going to recognize it. If I don't have hoodies, how's anyone ever going to find out about this? What would you say to kind of like people that have an idea, or they have a concept, or they have a program, or they have a thing, and they want to get it launched? How do you organize the thoughts around what's like your most important first step to start to head in the right direction, and what things like making t-shirts are a waste of your time and effort?
Branding is definitely important. I remember when we first started, our logo was literally a Google image of a decrepit house, a dilapidated house.
Right.
Like that was the logo. And then the logo became like a cartoon version of me. And now it's like the key. So it's like the key to surviving real estate. But I spent a shit ton of time worrying about merchandise and what the website looked like. And I don't know, like, I think it was still a good learning experience to do all that, because I needed to understand, like, okay, am I about to spend $5,000 on a website that no one visits, that has like a couple blogs up, that has like links to my socials, or should I focus on just growing and producing content? So I think like you kind of have to focus on whatever is working and what is growing your brand the most, and then kind of worry about that stuff as well. But the branding is definitely important, right? Like this key is now synonymous with like real estate humor. Like people wear hats with the key on it. It's the key to surviving real estate. Like the key, you know, it's like right here, we have the Overask podcast. The key is on that mug right there. These are, you know, $45 on the store if you want.
Nice markup there.
Yeah, exactly. Making $60 a mug. So the branding is important just because like that's how people are going to recognize you. But I think you focus on like your bread and butter. Like content is always the most important thing, especially for a media company. Like if your content sucks and I'm spending my entire day worrying about the website and worrying about the logo, you're missing out on the growth. Like that was my, like one thing I was good at was everyday post, right? As long as I'm doing that, before I even like know how to make money on this, if I just keep posting consistently and I keep seeing growth, I see more comments every day, I see more followers every day, then I know I'm doing something right. And then with that, like the money and everything will come.
I feel like I fucking drill this home to people all day long, that consistency is king. It's like my internal slogan. I don't think that you can do anything well if you're inconsistent, because what consistency does is it smooths over all the peaks and valleys.
Correct.
Because you can, let's say you post, 30 days in a row. Some things are just going to track better than others for completely unrelated reasons. And if you're super tied to that result, then each single time you do it means so much to you.
Yeah.
But you can only connect the dots going backwards. And if you look now at the Broke Agent at over almost 400,000 followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just on Instagram, you don't remember all the posts you did. There's
Right.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds
Thousands.
of them.
Yeah.
Thousands across multiple platforms. And you couldn't, in just thinking back, rank the quality of each one. It was just
Right.
the actual action of like doing it. And I think that's kind of, I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like that's a really important part, is to focus on that, focus on producing things, putting stuff out there, whether it's podcast episodes, Twitter posts, social media posts, enough of a website where you can actually just shoot something off
A
into
landing
the
page.
ether,
Yeah.
landing page, anything like that, collect emails, whatever. What was the experience having a partner? Because you guys, I know that you guys aligned in the beginning, because
Yeah.
I was there to witness you guys
Right.
continually create better stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start to see that crumble, and how did you, because obviously you were the one running the Broke Agent now, so
Mm-hmm.
that has since split.
Right.
But when did you smell like blood in the water, and what was it like going through that and then popping out on the other side?
It was pretty terrible. It was like, you start something and then you see it grow. And it was great because I had a friend and partner to go to real estate conferences with and give speeches with and motivate with, right? So, there'd be days as an entrepreneur or as someone who's posting on social. I mean, it sounds pathetic, but like some days you're just not, it doesn't sound pathetic, but you post something, it does terrible, or you have a
Pretty
shitty day.
pathetic.
Yeah, exactly. You have a shitty day in real estate, or you're just like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
we'd meet every day and like map out a couple posts, and like we were like in Beverly Hills. Like instead of going into the brokerage, we'd go get breakfast at like Nate and Al's and
Right.
drop like 20 on, sausage links and talk about like open house jokes, next to all these like successful people. And I remember just sometimes being like, dude, this is like, it's fun what we're doing, but this is fucking ridiculous. But it was really nice to have like a motivator and someone else that was like, keeping you accountable for sure.
Right.
But then I felt like I was producing all the content, and then I was like, okay, well, where's the business? Like, where's the other side of this coming from? And then he kind of wanted to do more, like he wanted systems in place, which made sense. Like it wasn't like one thing that happened.
Right.
It was just like we were kind of going in different directions. And then I saw he was taking like his personal brand into a little bit more of a like a life coach motivation type of thing, which is completely antithetical. Is that even a word?
That's a word, yeah, and
Oh,
well
good.
used in the sentence,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. So perfectly used. Just wanted to note that. And my brand, or the brand, was the exact opposite of that. It was
Right.
like anti-motivation almost.
Yeah.
So
It's like self-deprecating.
yeah, it was self-deprecating. So I think there was just like constant frustration of he wanted like to get systems in place or like hire someone to do the posting so we could focus on other stuff. And I was kind of like, well, why don't I just do the posting? Because like we had a system where I would come up with a caption and a meme
Right.
and send it to him, and then he would post it. And it's like, what are we, a factory?
Right. That too can be a problem when you're in the beginning of starting something, is you're trying to feel legitimate in what you're doing.
Correct.
Because you passing this off to us and approving it makes you guys feel like a team, and that he has a role and you have a role.
Yes.
And then to this point, hiring external people feels like a business, because what do businesses do?
Exactly.
They outsource marketing, they have people that run HR. And so you clamor to those high cost, low effective things instead of doing what you should do. And what you did do is fucking bootstrap it.
Right. And I think like he was right about stuff and I was right. And like, I don't even remember like the exact reason like the partnership ended actually. I'm trying to think of it right now, but it wasn't anything like crazy. It
I
was
just
just kind
remember
of,
it wasn't super copacetic. Like when
no,
it happened, it did get kind of like gloves off a little bit and
it,
legal actually,
yeah,
right? I
it just
mean,
got kind of stressful. And it was just like, look, we're not really making any money, but we've both invested an enormous amount of time into this.
right.
So like, how are we breaking away from this? Like, is there just, that's it? Like, we're done and then there's no compensation. So it was just, it was very weird, especially
Mhm.
with a company that was essentially worth nothing
Yeah,
besides
but at the same
the
time,
amount of
there's a lot of
time.
like, yeah, there's a lot of sweat equity in it, and there's the
Exactly.
intellectual. There's the part where you knew it could be something deep down,
Hmm.
otherwise you wouldn't have put all your time into it, and he just knew that it could be something, otherwise he
Yeah.
wouldn't have put all his time into it. So it's
This
a weird
was,
spot because it's not
he,
financially binding, but
yeah. And he was he was brilliant with the idea of making sure we're on every platform and posting on every platform.
Mhm.
So when I would send him the content, he would blast it off to Facebook. He'd post it on Twitter. He'd follow people. He'd unfollow people. He was like a warrior with like likes and comments. I know
Right.
that sounds ridiculous, but back in 2014, 15 Instagram, you could hack your way to followers by liking a million photos. Remember this?
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
could go on hashtag realtor, hashtag real estate humor, and like a million photos without getting blocked. And then you would get, 10% of the people whose photos you like, they would follow you. So he's doing like the growth hacking all day. Like
Right.
literally, like he'd be sitting at home, just boom, 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 liking, following, unfollowing, posting in Facebook groups. So that was all extremely necessary.
How
So,
do you feel like Facebook played a big role in that? 'Cause I always wonder at this point, like how valuable is Facebook to the growth of something new, and what are you getting from that platform that you're not getting on like Facebook or Twitter?
mhm. The average age of a realtor is 55. So most of them are still exclusively on Facebook. Not exclusively, I'd
Mm.
say a lot of them have Instagram as well right now, but it's still necessary to reach people everywhere. And as a brand, I kind of have to like hedge, like what if my Instagram gets shut down? What if I, post a picture of my ass or something like that on accident and then I get blocked?
1 million followers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, Instagram and Facebook both shut down for 8 hours the other day.
Pandemonium, by the
Yeah,
way.
complete pandemonium. And so Facebook, I don't know, it depends on what business you're going into, but it's necessary for Facebook ads because I run an enormous amount of ads for my template platform, for merchandise, for ebooks and stuff like that. So still very necessary. And then I also use it as a testing site for my Instagram content. So I'll post something on
Interesting.
Facebook, see how it does. And
Yeah.
if it does well, I'll be like, okay, this one's a banger. I'm going to throw it up on Instagram.
So when Wes walked away
Hmm.
or left, you guys kind of set that. I mean, that's an interesting point. So I was still training you then,
Yeah.
and still nowhere near what it is today.
Hmm.
Nowhere, not
No.
even close, right? And at that point, it was a website that you hadn't yet redone, I think, 3 times.
Yeah.
It was an Instagram account, a Twitter account,
A store.
and right in the online store, and that's just merch. Like that's not really, you're not,
No. It's
nothing
nothing.
else like value adds to the real estate market are on there yet.
Correct.
So what do you, I mean, what was that like, dude? Like
Yeah.
partial implosion on the partnership, and then
Yeah, I mean it was kind of scary because there was someone that I was communicating with every single day about this to like bounce ideas off of, and he was a great motivator too. He'd be like, "Dude, no, we're crushing it. Like
right,
there's no one else doing anything like this. Like we just got 40 comments. Like look at Inman News, which is the number one news source in real estate. They're not getting anywhere near that, and we started like 2 years ago
right.
or a year ago." So I just was kind of flailing around, not knowing what to like. I kept posting that. That's the one thing I always did. There probably was never 2 days that went by in the last 6 years that I didn't post something. So that was something I'd continued to do. But from a business standpoint, I didn't know. I would like reach out to brands and say like, "Hey, I have this following. Do you want to reach realtors? I could create like a meme for you and then put a link in my bio." But I
And were
think
they like,
no, I mean, a lot of them were into it, but a lot of them didn't really know. Like, there wasn't anything out there in real estate yet from like an influencer perspective. Like, it was more
right,
traditional media advertising or let's go to a real estate conference. So once I started doing that and actually like making not a decent amount, but I would do a brand deal like once a month, then it started to click a little bit. But it really clicked when I realized like I could actually help agents with social media and help them sell real estate with like different types of content. So that's when like really started making money on this, is I came out with an ebook that was just how to get followers on Instagram if you're a real estate agent. Just 50 pages, download, got all
And
their
you
emails.
wrote that all yourself, just kind of
Yeah.
came up with it. There were no animations or anything like that.
No, there was, so I hired a graphic designer.
Okay.
And she helped with like, it's a really like good looking book. And people were like, oh shit, like this guy actually knows what he's doing with social media. And then my mindset completely shifted. Like, if I could help agents sell real estate, grow their brands, and like teach them a little bit of what I've done to grow this, then this brand becomes even more powerful. And I'm not just giving them humor.
Right. That makes sense. And so then you become a value add too. Well, this is funny to me. So you almost, on one side of it, you're like shitting on the industry and shitting on all the quote assholes that are part of it. And then
Right.
on the same side, you're recognizing that like that's your group of people that are
Yes.
like, if you're thinking about like who's going to buy a how to grow Instagram followers book,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like the super humble, down to earth, like mom and pop real estate guy.
Yeah. It's the people. Yeah, it's true.
It's the bougie kind of asshole real estate dudes who are like,
Right.
no, I need this. I need to be like the number one dude. I want to be number one agent, that kind of stuff. Did you ever feel like you were conflicted in like within those two? You kind of need everyone because it supports the business, grows the business, but at the same time, they're the source of like the humor and the
Right.
satire.
Well, I think there was a content shift too. So when I was like a miserable real estate agent starting out, the content was more vicious towards real estate and towards like those asshole agents. So now it's more like client-based humor or situational based humor because I've done so much, not so much real estate, but I've been involved in so much that like the content has grown. So
Right.
before it was like from the perspective of I'm pissed off, I'm not making any money, I'm cold calling, I'm door knocking. How do people act like they like this? Fuck all these agents, basically, type of
Right.
content. And then it shifted the more I was in it and the more I met these people. I'm like, okay, they're not all actually douchebags. Like I like the majority of these people. So I think that's where
Maybe
the
you
shift.
transcended, you yourself became a post college douchebag
Right.
at a
Yes.
later stage in your life, but
Yeah, that's
embodied it and
possible.
really owned it.
Yeah, I've always had that in me for sure. It's always resurfacing.
That's wild. So it begins to grow. You start to see that this thing can really become something. And you're starting to, at this point, we'll say you're generating revenue, right? Because you have the ebook is doing well. And
Hmm.
that's marketed directly to all the people that engage with the like multiple platforms.
Hmm.
And then in addition to that, now you're like one-on-one consulting, or you're consulting for like Compass Beverly Hills would be like, hey, we're going to bring in this guy and he's going to help you guys expand your reach. How did you end up in that position where you're actually like consulting for people or for brands within the real estate industry?
I started off kind of in combo roles where I would produce content for these brands. So it's mostly brands trying to reach real estate agents because that's what I was best at. Is, I have a following. I know how to grow an audience of realtors. So if you're a startup app or you're a CRM service or something like that and you want to reach real estate agents, I was the best platform to do it on. And I also know how to get those agents. So it was like a half consulting roles, half like, hey, here's your posting strategy, here's your content calendar, here's how much you should post, here's what you should do on stories, and then also me producing content. So that started in like 2019 was like the consulting. And I still do that as well now. But like the main shift is when I came out with this template platform, which is it's called Coffee and Contracts. I didn't come out with it. Like I didn't begin it, but I put my content on it. So
Yep.
agents don't know what to do on social media. Like if you go to a real estate
Correct.
agent's social media, you'll want to blow your head off, right? It's just solds, it's in escrows, it's motivational quotes, it's like, and it's changed a lot, in the last few years, like people are recognizing that you have to be authentic. But this is basically a platform where agents can brand and customize templates for social media. And then every month we come out with new templates. And then I come up with 30 to 50 funny templates every month. So October's like spooky content and shit.
So these are templates that they then use on social platforms, or they use
Yes.
on exclusively Facebook, whatever, and it just helps them guide them away from, here's my client with the keys to their new house. Like,
Exactly.
cool.
Yes.
Everyone's seen that, right?
It's
Um,
formatted for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Instagram stories. And then I come up with like GIFs that all they have to do is replace their branding. So if you're an agent, you have your own logo, you replace your branding, text is already on there. And then it's also like infographics. So, but this is all content directed towards clients. So it's different than my content. It's like, hey, how can I be funny, but also educate my clients? And it's been massive.
And so this is behind a paywall within within the broke agent?
No, it's called Coffee and Contracts.
Oh, this
So
is entirely separate.
yeah. So I'm an affiliate that creates content for it, but I'm
I
like the
see.
hook
Yeah.
to get agents on, and it's great for them because it improves their business and their social media. So
Right.
instead of worrying about because agents, like good agents are doing real estate. They're not thinking, oh, I got to post something. I got to post something, but
Right.
they know how important social media is now. So now they have a platform where it's like, oh, I want to post something, but I'm not funny and I can't think of what to post. I'm just going to use this.
It's interesting, like at this point in getting close to the age where, like, people are buying houses now, and that I couldn't say that, 10 years ago, or what at the time that I was training you, and seeing people move towards that. I've always felt like Instagram was like a weird place for real estate. Like, it didn't make sense to me that, and partially because I think the quality of the content was like not good. It was just kind of like, here's a crazy house that you can't afford. But now it's, you see so much of people putting out this content, or like, hey, here's a walkthrough, or they're doing like a video walkthrough, or here's the house,
Exactly.
here's the details, whatever. And maybe after, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months of seeing that, and then you're like, I'm thinking about a house. Those people, they're like first person in your head, no matter what.
Exactly.
And for a real estate agent, like, to be successful, if you make in Los Angeles, if you sell 8 houses in a year, right? Like, you're doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
You have no way to quantify at what point the people that have been exposed to your material are then going to become a client. And if 6,000 people are exposed to your content and only 8 people become a client, that's huge.
Massive.
So even if you're not quantifying like the exact dollar amount of how valuable is my content, all you have to do is look at the end result. And if the fact that you have an Instagram or a Twitter or something, and 1 or 2 of those people in the history of your agency have turned into a home buyer, that should justify it across the board.
Yeah, 1,000%. You should speak at a real estate conference. That's exactly
well,
what.
No, I mean, I say this because I personally just like struggle with the use of Instagram constantly for training. I get really sick of it, or I just, the training industry and Instagram together, it just like drives me nuts. But then I look and I'm like, I can in some way almost trace every single person that I continue to train back to that platform, or people that have trained in the past and then come back, that literally will say in a message, they're like, hey, I hadn't talked to you in a while, but saw your video or saw this or that. And they will then become a client again. And so in that moment, it justifies the use. And then you look at it and you're like, man, am I underselling myself by not being more active on it? And if you look at what you were saying, I mean, you were doing a post every single day.
Yep.
That's actually not that hard in terms of like total time effort. It gets exhausting mentally to do that. But every single person in any industry can be doing that right now, and they're probably not.
Absolutely. And now I'm doing 3 feed posts a day, 15 Instagram stories a day, a Facebook post, a Twitter post, a TikTok post. I'm responding to DMs. I'm figuring out how to get more story views because I'm doing like an advertisement, or I'm doing like plugging the merch or plugging the podcast. So it's like a constant puzzle to like keep evolving with Instagram. But to your point about real estate agents, like now the content with stories and with reels and with slideshow posts, they can show so much more of real estate than just a picture, that they're realizing like, oh shit, I could do funny content. I could do a reel where I'm pointing at like, this is the pre-approval process. And someone who wants to buy a house, they want to know what that is. Like, I'll watch that. I don't know what the pre-approval process is.
I feel like right now it's actually interesting to listening to you talk about this, because you're talking about these different stages that social media has been at, like pre-stories, pre-this, pre-that, the way that you could hack your way into creating a following. And now I feel like no matter what, like the number one thing that just has to be present in whatever you're putting out for content, it has to add instant value to that person, like in the moment.
Yeah.
Because if they're going through, no one wants to see another person with a coffee cup in front of their Porsche logo. Nobody wants to see another dude doing sit-ups with no shirt on. Like, it's just, it's run through, man. Like, move on. But you will stop and think, if the person doing the thing is giving you something you didn't know. Like,
Exactly.
here's an aspect of real estate that's part of the daily process you're going to go through. And I understand you might not be buying a house right now, but check this out. And you're like, huh, wow, Eric just taught me that. And you just kind of catalog it in your head. And if that person does that 100 times, then when it comes time to make a decision, you feel like this person has been doing you a solid the whole time. And it's kind of the only way to make your content stand out from other people is to,
Education.
yeah, create value or add something, teach something beyond just fucking another horrible, sweaty, shirtless photo. Like, it's done.
Exactly. Like that's the thing. Like an in escrow post, you're scrolling through Instagram and you see someone is in escrow for a place for $500,000. You don't care at all. You scroll right by that thing. It means absolutely nothing. It's still important. Like, and there's ways to do it as a realtor. Like, if you want to post your just solds, you should, but you could tell a story. You could like do a slideshow. You could say like, the reason this house sold or why it took 40 days is because it fell out of this inspection. Here's what an inspection is. Here's a story. Here's a reel about it. Here's a walkthrough of the house. So you could still like show other people like I am successful and I am selling places, but you could do it in a way that's presented in an entertainment way. And now vertical video is everything, right? Like TikTok has taken over. Instagram Reels is now TikTok, except on Instagram. And the Instagram CEO came out and said, we're an entertainment app now. We're an entertainment app, we're a shopping app, and we're a messaging app. And if you're not posting vertical video in Instagram Reels, you're not really going to grow. They're not going to push your content. And I see that directly. If I post a meme, it'll get decent engagement. But if I post a reel, I could get 250,000 views on this thing. And that's when the new followers and everything are coming in. So now agents have to evolve to be like, even if I'm not comfortable on video, you could do a reel. Here's the kitchen set to some, Billie Eilish song or something. Here's the kitchen. Here's the bedroom. Here's this. Keep them engaged. And that's a good way to do it.
I think too, on that note, it's important to remember that you don't have to be like good at this thing.
No.
Like no matter what content you make, it will be so much worse when you look back to your years from now at the quality that you will then be. I mean, you're a great example, right? And before in the past, it was everything that you could muster to get yourself to send something to Wes to get him to post it that day and approve
exactly.
it. And now you're doing
inefficient thing ever.
I mean, at this point, you have to be on a content schedule. There's no way that you can produce the amount of stuff that you produce without thinking ahead. And you're putting a crazy amount of stuff. Am I wrong? You're pulling this all out of the hat every day.
I have a huge bank of jokes and thoughts. And then I have in my phone notes and screenshots of stuff that I know that I'm probably going to post that week. I need to streamline this process because every day I wake up, it's like, I'm like, I got to get up at 7 and start posting Instagram stories. Like, cause you got to get the machine rolling on Instagram. Like for a feed post to do well, like I always want Instagram stories up already because they've already interacted with my content that day. So then they're going to like interact with my feed post more. And this is just so I could keep like growing at this level. And I definitely need a streamlined process. I need a content calendar and I need someone else to help with posting because what happens when I go to Israel for a few days, or what happens if I get COVID and can't post, or what, like the machine just stops. And that's like,
and it does not reward
layering. No, and Instagram hates when you stop. But seriously, like
it's
their number
so
one
sad.
thing, it really is. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, it caused a lot of anxiety every day to keep having to post and keep being funny. Like it's my business.
Yeah,
but
dance monkey.
Yeah, exactly. But it's tough for sure. Like it's hard to come up with the shit, especially now when I'm doing less real estate.
I'm surprised that you haven't brought on at this point another person, like considering the growth and how much how much you've positioned this thing to be like, I feel like it's on the brink of being like a juggernaut in terms of real estate media. Like you said, there's really only one other company that comes close. I forget the name. It starts with an I, but you said it earlier. And
Igloo News.
Yeah, it will not be named. Inman.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're at a place where you could bring someone on, take a little bit off your plate. The challenge, I'm assuming, is that you are the voice for this, right? You are the source of humor. So it's shit that is funny in your head based on your experience. How do you you can't like screen someone else for their humor level. Do like 100 interviews and be like, oh, you're only like a 6 out of 10 funny. And
Have you seen Hacksaw Ridge?
Question one, have
do
you
you
seen
think the
Hacksaw?
Hacksaw Ridge joke is funny or not? That's the process. But so there's, now I'm getting a lot of submissions. There's a lot of realtors out there that are coming out of the woodworks that are hilarious. So because this has been going on, I think it gave realtors like an okay, like, oh shit, I could do funny stuff too. This is a great way to grow my brand, not in the way that the broke agent's doing it, but I could basically, look at his content and act it out in like a skit or a reel. So there's a guy named Matt Leonetti, who's my Overass podcast partner, who does hilarious
Saw
reels,
that guy, yeah.
skits, videos. He lives in Canada. We're doing like a real estate course together. There's a guy, Dan O'Neill in New York, who I do a lot of content with. So they're not feeding me like daily posts, but I mean, they do send me a lot of shit too, but I'm constantly reposting them. I'm basically trying to grow their brand and then in turn grow my brand. And it's kind of like the Barstool method where it's like, hey, you come on to the Broke Agent, I'm going to get you a bunch of followers, but I get to post your content too. We're going to create content together, and it's been epic.
Do you see yourself trying to like really to a T model this after Barstool's like growth strategy and putting yourself in a position where you have other like, whether it's humor or I guess you could actually channel it to be more like really informational and technical based, but everything under the Broke Agent umbrella.
Yes.
And then you have other people underneath there doing that.
That's exactly what I want. I want this to be an entire media company. I want to throw conferences. I want there to be other podcasts under me. I want there to be other kind of like influencers and creators and characters that, like I said, I grow their brand. I post their stuff like on the Mayn account, but they're doing their own thing. And then the next step is real estate education, where you get your real estate license, nothing. So we're coming out with like this hysterical course, which is about like how to not look like an idiot your first 5 years in real estate. And it's acted out with skits and everything too. So there's an entire like real estate education platform that I want to do as well. So
that sounds like a breath of fresh air to me. Cause I mean, I only know I think there's a lot of parallels with like the training industry and the real estate industry, from necessary like interpersonal skills and relationship building and rapport building and all these kind of clients things that like lead to a sale. But I feel like one of the worst parts is once you pass your exam as like a quote trainer, you have no idea what the fuck you're doing. Like you've never trained anyone, you've never sat down, had to sell the value of your product, you've never done intake on pre-existing conditions that people have and how to treat them. It's just like, a house with a foundation that's built into the mud is different than one that's on concrete. And you have to know the difference of that and be able to speak to it so you can communicate to people. If someone can make that funny. So like, okay, you pass this super dry, shitty, annoying exam. Now you know nothing. And here's something that's like informational, but also hilarious, because humor is what draws you in to want to sit through something. I'm not going to sit through a seminar, listen to some jackass in a collared shirt talk about movement for 10 hours. I could never do that. But if you had someone funny who's like giving you real information, but giving it in a way that's comical, then you kind of sit through it and you're like, oh, this is great. I would actually, one, I'd recommend this to someone, because then you get the residual growth from people recommending it. And then two, I actually feel informed now, because this wasn't just bullshit like PowerPoint.
Exactly. People remember funny. And that's what this course is. So we have this guy, Byron Lazine, who's not necessarily funny, who teaches it. And then we do cutaways, scenes of Matt Leonetti acting out the character of the incompetent agent. So it's basically, he's watching this. So he watches this course during the course, and then he goes through like all the steps. He's like, oh yeah, you just got your license. Now what? How do you join a brokerage? Okay, you got your first showing request. Make sure you drive the neighborhood. Make sure you show up 15 minutes early. Make sure you scout out other comps. Because when I first got my license and they were like, go show a place, my boss, I would just show up to the place like on time. I didn't even know, to set up the house beforehand. I didn't know I needed to know about the house. Like no one taught me this, and so many agents, they just don't know what the fuck to do.
I feel like
so
you should know to know about the house.
Okay, that was a stupid example, but like this will tell you what questions you're going to get asked at an open house. What's the square footage? When was this built? What are the comps in the neighborhood? What school district is it in? That type of thing. So it basically guides you through that. I do the social media section, and then we have other creators like doing an open house, and it's all funny.
And this will be available through the Broke Agent as like an e-course.
This will be an entire video course This is like hours of footage. So we filmed like 80% of it. This is like the big product. This
Do
is the
you
upsell.
surprise?
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah,
You
that's
got the
where we get
ebook.
you.
Now you got a $10,000 course.
But with that, how do you bring credibility to that, to something like that? Because you guys are the funny guys, right? Like you're
Yes.
providing the humor in the industry, you're shitting on things, you're really poking fun and undermining a lot of stuff on purpose. But how do you then produce something like this and make it obviously like the information is going to be thorough,
Yeah.
but is there like a certification attached? How does someone walk away from that and not say like, I did the satirical real estate course and now I'm
Top
better
producer
in the event
university.
that someone else asks them, you know?
Yes. Well, the credibility comes from the people that are teaching it. So I'm credible with social media. I'm not teaching you how to
Facts.
sell. I'm not teaching you how to sell real estate. And I go over that in my intro. I'm like, I know what you're doing. Like, you just opened this course. You think I'm going to fucking tell you anything? I'm called the broke agent. Look at my sales. There's 3, you know, there's more than that. But the guy, Byron Lazine, is like this highly respected real estate agent who has a massive team in both Connecticut
Bjorn?
and Florida. Yeah, exactly. Alfonso and Bjorn. And then Matt Leonetti is doing like videos, and this guy Ben Fisher is doing open houses, and he's like extremely successful in Long Beach. So there's the credibility. Now we have to figure out, like, after this course, like you said, is there a Discord community? Is there like, do we do more seminars with them? Like, I want to like nurture that community of newly licensed agents where like they keep getting help and we keep adding
Right.
to the course.
Well, that can totally spiral off into like, I mean, you talk about doing speaking events and conferences and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a place where you could even further bump that, because then you have continuing education, or because at the end of the day, people are going to love it. They're going to like the material. They're going to find it entertaining, and then they're going to feel like they learned something. And so the likelihood that they come back in the future when you tune it, it's because it's like everything else. It's going to evolve and get better only.
Yep.
With time and the effort of the people that you put into it. So it'll be cool to watch that grow. What else is on the books for you guys?
That's the main project right now. The podcast is huge. Not huge. The podcast is a huge part of the brand right now. So, you know, just going into these different forms of media has been really important to see, like, what am I good at? Am I going to do YouTube videos? I tried that for a little. It was cringe as fuck. I did like that rap video. Remember that?
I wasn't going to bring it up just because, but
back in the day, it was
I
fun.
feel like there's some genius in it. I don't even know if it's available, actually. I don't think it's available anymore.
I think I unlisted it.
I was telling someone that story the other day. I'm not going to waste our time with trying to remember who it was, but I was telling them, and they were like, the look on their face, they were trying to understand what I was saying. And I was like, I know I'm doing a good job of explaining this because I've seen it like 50 times.
Right.
But they couldn't. They're like, wait, he's like rap, like the whole time he's rapping. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, no, it's like a full, like start to finish. It's a rap video.
It's a rap.
And they rented space and office, and
yeah,
they got people,
exactly,
and it's semi-choreographed.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Eric wrote it. And I was like, yep. And he wrote it. And they're like,
and it kind of flows a little bit.
There were bars in there. Let's be honest. Like,
there were bars.
You know that's a great video, and it should probably actually sit front page on the website if you ever want to sell anything again.
If you look back at it, it's like misogynistic. I talk about like drugs. I like something that would not fly. Like if I came out with that now, they'd be like,
your
what the
business
fuck?
would
I'm like
implode.
slapping asses.
Yeah.
Like I say, like I got into real estate because of like chicks or something. Like it's beyond douchey.
Right.
But like
but that's actually this is an important part, right? Because you look at the successes where you're at. That's actually a great thing to talk about, because that video, one, it costs a lot of money to make, especially at the time when, again, the broke agent was nowhere near even making its first dollar. So it costs a lot of money. It took a ton of effort. Laughingly, you had to write the rap, but that actually took time. You had to get the people involved. You had to pay them. You had to get the space, the videographer. You had to put it all together. And then it goes live. And how many people watch it?
I think like by now, 20,000 or something like that,
but no, I mean, at the time of the launch, like it's like
3,000.
Right. You put all that effort. So if you're tied to the effort and the outcome, you're going to get really pissed off because it's frustrating. But if you look at it now, that was like a crucial step. I mean, that was your first production of something that you did. And now look at what you're doing. You're about to produce this entire series. You've done it before. you know that it can work. Like, I think that it's important for people to think about that, because not everything is a fucking win, man.
Oh no, I've had so many failures. I did a Kickstarter with an animation series
I
where I
remember
raised
that.
like $7,500, and it was just like a 1 minute animation because I was like, okay, this has to be a show. Like this would be a hilarious show, like a South Park of real estate,
Yeah.
or a Curb of real estate or something like that. Like that's was the end goal to this. And I posted it to Instagram. It did well, but I was like, what am I going to do? Raise another $7,500 for the next episode? Like get a sponsor? Like this is, it's just not, I can't do this again. So there was so many times like that where I would do a YouTube video, but it's all part of the brand where someone would like, someone saw the rap video and was like, oh shit, that's funny. Like I'm going to stick around. Like there's people that
Right.
come up to me at real estate conferences and they'll say stuff like, I've been following you for 6 years. You know, like it's awesome to see what has come out of this, because all these little failures and stuff are part of like the ultimate story of the brand. Like you're not going to put out just bangers every single time.
How do you know when to like can something?
Like a
Because
post or something.
anything like a post or project, 'cause I feel like, at this point you're growing and continue to grow at a rate that's bigger than
Mhm.
one person, right? So like,
Yep.
I mean, the Kickstarter thing is a great example. You do it once, people buy into it, $7,500, you produce this thing, it goes out there, and then you're basically like, whoa, this is bad investment of my time. This is bad investment of other people's money. This is not what
Mhm.
I thought it would be. I'm shutting this down. I'm moving on.
Yep.
Because that's a hard part for people to get to, where they cut something off, you know?
Yeah.
How do you gauge that? Like,
I
when do you
think
shut something down?
in that the Kickstarter, there was direct feedback, right? Like I posted that, it did okay. Like I posted memes that did way better than that. So if I would have seen a response that was like, this is fucking hilarious, I want part two, where's part two? I love this
Right.
character. That probably would have fed into me be like, okay, maybe there's something here. But I think, like you said, it's kind of just the time consumption versus what did this get me? Like, did I pick up an entirely new audience? Is this sustainable, or is this just going to be a waste of time? So I think it's kind of trial and error, and then you get better at it too. Because sometimes, like in entrepreneurship, as you know, like you'll have an idea, you'll be super excited about that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or something like that. And then, I mean, we had a million of these.
Yeah.
Like we actually probably went through 50 business ideas when we were training.
That was I mean, just with launching the ski system recently,
Yeah.
it's so to that point, it's so funny how in your head you will get this idea, and you understand your audience, the people that interact, you talk with them, and so you're like, man, this is gonna be the thing. Like, this is gonna track the best. It's gonna
Yeah.
get more people convert on this than anything else I do. And you build it up and build it up, and then you deliver it, and it's like, it's like a bad joke, dude. It
Hmm.
falls completely flat. Or you build out a component of the website or an offering or something, and then people interact with it, and they interact with it entirely differently than you ever intended to.
Yeah.
And you're like, how would you guys ever you almost blame them, when in
Hmm.
reality it's like, I just didn't test it enough. I didn't ask enough people. And it can be so frustrating
Yeah.
when those things happen and then fall short. But you have to just like, I mean, pick up your boots and like keep going, because there's going to be a trillion moments like that.
Yeah.
Like when you guys launched, you did like the Broke Agent TV, right? Where it's you and I
Hmm.
forget his name, your co-host, but you already,
Oh, the Broken News Network. Yeah. Ben
yeah,
Fisher. Yeah.
Ben in Canada, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So when you guys launched that, like, I was watching this kind of develop, and I'm like, what better? This is incredible. These guys are going
Right.
to come out and do a show. Nothing will convert better than this. Like, millions
Mhm.
of people will watch this. I just thought it was so perfect. And then when it launched, it was just like slower to pick up, right?
Yes.
Because you're
Yeah.
taking people that like memes and captions, and
Hmm.
you're saying, hey, will you stick around for 15
Yes.
minutes?
Hmm.
And they're like, no, I literally like scroll through this in my car and I share it with my friends. I'm
Right.
not going to listen to you talk on something.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I
So
mean,
that, well, there's also this. So I'll get into that in 1 second, but it's under here. I wrote a book, Commission Impossible, an animation book.
a
Like that was,
phenomenal name.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
The name is great. It's, but that took so much time, and I was like, oh, this book will sell. It's perfect. And I don't know, sold a couple thousand copies and made a couple $1,000s, which is nothing. But the broke. So like these are still things that like I would never write another book
Right.
until like this becomes something else just because the time put into that was ridiculous compared to the return. But the Broke News Network, like that's another thing. We did it for 9 months and it grew and a lot of people loved it, but that was so incredibly time consuming and expensive. So we had to
Right.
pay a video editor. I had to drive to Long Beach to film it. I was writing all of it basically, and then like coming up with these segments and then filming for, 4 or 5 hours to make like a 15-minute clip that was edited. And then after that clip came to me, we would have to edit in like explosions and text and
Right.
stuff to put it up to make it funny. Um, I still think there's something there with it, but I was just like, I'm getting burnt out. I can't keep driving. And I love those guys. I still work with them. I'm doing the course with them, Ben Fisher and Joey. But it's just, yeah, I think you get to a point where like the return is not worth it. Like that wasn't making any money. That was just like another brand building thing. Maybe
Right.
we'll get a sponsor, right? But it's also an IGTV show, and Instagram is evolving to reels. People just want short form, 15
Right.
seconds, 30-second, give it to me. And then IGTV, I think it's changed recently actually, but you have to actually click on the video. So you see that
Right. To get the
15-second
full thing.
preview. And then also in your headphones, if you click out of Instagram, IGTV goes away. So it's not
Right.
like YouTube, the YouTube app. So there's a lot of problems with who's going to sit through a 15-minute video.
Right.
And that's just like how people consume now. So now I've evolved to more reels. And we actually did Broke News Network stuff where we started doing like little 15 seconds, like Ashley Tisdale bought a house today and who cares? And then our heads would explode, and they were funny, but also like, sometimes it's just like the content, like I'm just going to grow the Broke Agent right now, but I have bad real estate picks and the Overask podcast and shit. So
But that's something you can return to in the future. I feel like
yes.
that almost seems like this is why it's interesting to me, is it almost seems like it fits the best because it's stand-up comedy from
Mm-hmm.
two people at the same time, delivering your humor to
Mm-hmm.
a perfect degree because it's you doing it.
Right.
And then it's in a shareable, funny, edited way.
Educational, like we did
Educational.
market updates, social media advice. Like that was the goal, was like, I want to watch this once a week and get real estate news. So
And
there,
then, so did
it's
you shut that completely? Well, at least for the time being.
not the relationship, but we were like, I mean, the guy was doing it with Ben. I called him. I was like, dude, this is a lot. Like this is
Yeah.
costing a lot of money. And this is, like I don't know how we're going to get a sponsor I mean, we could definitely have gotten a sponsor, but I don't know if it would have paid for everything. And
Right.
is this something we just flash, like sponsored by Redfin or something like that? Or is it something that I have to like physically post about as well? So it just got to a point where I was getting burnt out because writing that show took fucking hours.
It's kind of crazy when you, especially in the way that information is delivered to us. Like if you go on, I follow like a lot of MMA news accounts,
Yeah.
and different journals and stuff they'll put out, a 10-minute video, 50-minute video, or a second video, and I'm consuming them all day long. Like they're entertaining and they're cut really well and they have very good graphics and all this stuff. When you start getting into the production aspect of that and you realize how many hours it takes to make a little fucking video, it's borderline infuriating.
Yeah.
On the front side of it, you have to come up with everything. And it's, before you do it, you kind of think like I did this, I made this ski video to promote the website and it has like an intro. And so I was like, oh, well, this will be easy. I'll just like stand in the closet and I'll record the voiceover and then I'll just send it to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. And it took me like 5 hours to write the thing, which is 30 seconds because I didn't like how it sounded or whatever. And so I'm revising it and doing. And then I recorded it. And then I felt like I sounded like a frog with his throat cut in half. And so I was like, geez, I can't put this. It makes the entire thing look bad. So then I had to hire a voiceover guy to do it.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, to make this little 30-second intro that literally no one fucking cares about at all, it was like 10 hours of writing, all the time recording it, editing it, getting it to the producer, having the voiceover guy redo it, sending it back to me, getting it to the video editor to match it with the audio, then producing the video. And so you just don't realize like the amount of time it takes to produce a 10-second piece of really well done content.
It's insane.
But that's kind of your goal when you're like creating content for the first time. You're always trying to emulate the best thing, but you need like resources and you need time availability. It's almost like it's not your best point of attack in the beginning. because it's going to take all your energy out just to get it done.
Long form is tough for sure. And like, yeah, that type of editing with Broke News Network, not only do we do the show and the edits before and afterwards and the writing, we would have to shoot a cover photo for the IGTV thing. And then the actual posting of it is time consuming. Like you have to come up with a caption. That first 15 seconds has to be engaging. And then on the Broke Agent story, I would share the Broke News Network post. I would have to build up my story. Like with Instagram stories, you can't just post something. Like I would need to do polls, questionnaires. Like I needed entertaining content up front so that people are already watching the story. Then there's a plug for the Broke News Network. And then if they happen to hit that, then they go to the Broke News Network and hopefully watch that. So this was like,
Jeez.
like the day of posting a Broke News Network thing was
so
like
stressful.
And then we broke it down into 4 days. So we were like, okay, people aren't watching the entire 15 minutes. Let's do, Market Mondays, Tips Tuesdays, Whack Me Off Wednesdays, whatever. And then go through no. And then yeah.
Really good day for Wednesday.
Yeah. Those got the most views. And it was just like 4 days of this. And that's when I was just like, okay, I can't 4 days of this. Like,
right.
I got to post all these, come up with the captions, do all the tags, do the hashtags. It's like you're performing surgery.
So between like where you are and where you want to go, what do you think stands in your way between? I just keep looking to like the Barstool example because they're huge.
Yeah,
and they have so many people producing things underneath them, whether it's podcasts or video content or whatever. So how do you stay focused on like the thing at hand, what you're doing right now, and also ensure that you're like on track in the trajectory that you want to go?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fair. Just kidding. I was like, hey, some people don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard because like I still have to grow the page. Like I have to stick with the bread and butter, and that means posting 10, 15 stories a day. But now I'm interacting with brands and sponsors and partnerships and building the course and filming the podcast content and booking guests and stuff. So I think what stands in my way is delegation and like hiring. Yeah. Like I think, for me, it's like, okay, now I'm finally like making enough money where this is literally the only thing I'm doing. How can I hire someone that is like trustworthy where maybe he actually or she uses my Instagram? Like that's a big thing to give up.
Well,
like,
at this point, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit ago, but when almost 500,000 people are now in that person's hands.
Yes.
From a trust standpoint, from a content quality standpoint. And as we know, if the content starts to slip at all, it'll like you will get punished by the powers that be, right? I mean,
yeah,
it
the
can very
algorithm
quickly
will punish
be.
You.
I spend so many hours reluctantly watching just like things on YouTube about how to create better content, blah, blah. And when I hear like the algorithm, I want to like literally just rip all the teeth out of my face. Like,
trust me, I know.
So annoying.
I am battling the algorithm all day. You realize I'm like a knight just constantly fighting this snaky algorithm that's evolving and getting more heads and forcing you to do things you don't want to do, forcing you to post things you don't want to post. Like it's ridiculous. I watch these YouTube videos all day too. Like I'll literally after this. Yeah, of course. You got to train. You got to, I mean, this is what I do now. So if I'm not like, that's why you have to evolve with these apps, right? Like if I was just still posting memes, like now the algorithm picks up replicated content. So if I post a meme that was shared on Fuck Jerry, but throw, a real estate joke on it, it sees that image has already been placed and will punish it. So now it's just rewarding like Instagram original content.
Is this a worse life than being a moderately successful real estate agent?
It's better for sure, but there's no turning it off.
There's not. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, but I think about that too. I'm like, okay, so you kind of dig yourself into this hole on creating, you reach an amount of production that is really reserved for a certain amount of people. Like to do what you're doing, if it was easy, everyone in the real estate industry would do it. They would all just piggyback off your model and do it. But it's exceptionally difficult because of the output. But at the same time, every time you produce something, you're digging the hole a little bit deeper that relies on you currently to produce that kind of stuff, to keep it relevant, to keep it growing. So you trap yourself in the successes of your own like endeavor. But the same can be said for someone slaving away in an office for someone
Of
else. Like
course.
that
Yeah.
person's going to work every single day, staring at a computer that they hate, making shit that they don't like, and spending their free time scrolling through the broke agent, wishing
Right.
that they could just make funny content for people all day. So
Right.
it's
True.
all like perspective. I think it would be hilarious if on the tail end of this, you end up launching a real estate brokerage
Mhm.
and you guys are like number one in the country just
That would
based
be
on
sick.
your reach.
Yes.
It would be hilarious.
And there's something there too. There's referral networks. Like there's a ton of stuff I could definitely be doing more for the real estate business side. But right now it's still like content focused. But it is fun. Like it is addicting. Like when you post something that crushes that you actually like, even if it's a quick little TikTok or something, you it feels incredible. You're like, damn, people are digging this. They're saying it's the funniest thing ever. They're messaging me. Like they're coming up to me at real estate conferences. Like that is nice.
This
You
is
know?
a maybe too deep question, but do you feel like some of that, like, what's that? Why that gratification for you? Why is that important? And I don't mean that
Because
judgmentally
I'm a
from like
sad,
it's,
sick person.
is there truth to that though?
Oh, a little bit. I think like anyone that has like a sense of humor needs validation for what they're either saying or doing. And I think
Right.
there's like an insecurity in me for sure that it's like, oh, this is great to get this constant validation. And I'm putting out that validation 3 times a day with feed posts and story posts. So like really 40 times a day. So I'm constantly getting feedback on it. And it does violently affect my mood. Like if you
Fair.
post something that you worked on for a while, like if I post a Broke News Network and it got 2,000 views and I spent 10 hours that week pushing it, I'm like, fuck this. Like,
Yeah.
like you guys just want memes. Like you want the same open house meme 50 times in a row. Like you can't sit there for 10 minutes and, learn about the market. So
This could be, I mean, this is a whole like funny spinoff of like the frustrated content producer and just like
right.
the actual internal dialogue between you and and people not liking the shit that you're putting out. But I mean, this is the crux of comedians, right? There's many comedians that also like they suffer from depression or they have
Mhm.
security issues. It's that you're constantly putting yourself at risk
Mhm.
in the face of other people, which isn't something that a lot of people do, to where you're like, all right, I'm out here. This is the thing. And then people either spit on you or they laugh. And the laughs make you feel good and keep going. And the spit makes you feel horrible and want to run away.
Yeah.
So you're finding a way to like steamroll that basically.
Yes.
Are
And
there people that like reach out and say like really hurtful things or like try to like shit on the broke agent and
yeah.
call you out?
Yeah, I mean, people will message me if I promote something. God forbid, like I promote an article that I wrote that's literally like 10 hacks to get more engagement on your stories, which is like the most useful thing ever. I'll get messages saying like stop promoting shit or like this wasn't funny or this person's funnier than you or like, stick to memes. Like that's always the most brutal one. If I put my face out there and someone says just stick to memes,
Dude,
or I'll
own
do
it.
like
Make shirts. Stick to memes.
stick
That could
to
be on the
memes.
back of a
Yeah.
broke agent shirt.
That one is brutal. Stick to memes. I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much, but you could definitely get one negative comment. Like it's more the comments of where I post something that I don't think is insulting, and then you'll get a Karen basically, for lack of a better term, on Facebook that says like, "Oh, that person you posted wasn't drunk. They have like a back problem." Like I posted some video of someone like walking like this who was clearly obliterated at like a PGA Tour event, and she's like, "That person has scoliosis. Like take this down," or something like that. Or the worst is, "I followed you for years. This isn't funny. Like this is making us look bad," or something. And it's
Oh,
just like,
I had the other day, I was doing these test ads. It was like an A/B
mhm,
test basically, but I was actually using memes to see if memes drew traffic to the site, but they were geared towards training. So I would do what you were talking about. I basically rip a meme off somewhere else,
right.
repost it with branded stuff for training, and then run ad money behind it just to see if people move over to the page. And it must have just targeted like one area a lot and sent
Mhm.
an unreasonable amount of the same ad to people, because it got people would message me like, your ads fucking suck, bro, like get the hell off the platform. And I was like, what? And then this one kid, dude,
Your
this
ads
was this
suck.
this was so good. This kid is like, your ads, I can't even remember what he said. It like put me in such a bad mood until I clicked on the account and it was like a 14-year-old kid that lives in the town I grew up in. And
Right.
he was telling me I like skied like shit. My ads are stupid. The page is dumb. And I was like, wow, this is insane. I'm like feeling some type of way because a 13-year-old kid is telling me that the memes that I'm producing are not quality enough for
Yep.
him. What a
Yeah.
weird like
I mean, it's
experience.
easy to comment, right? It's very easy to, troll and comment for sure. And it's just like, do you internalize it? Yeah, usually I do.
Yeah.
But I could act like I don't give a fuck, but you know me, I give an enormous amount of fucks
But I
about
think
everything.
it's a testament to your successes, because if you didn't
Right.
care, then you wouldn't be able to. I think the caring overcomes the negative
Right.
comments. It
Agreed.
overcomes people that are telling you that the stuff you're putting out is offensive when it 100% is not, and it's entirely rooted in
Hmm.
satire towards the real estate industry.
Exactly. It helps shape the content though in a positive way sometimes too. Like even if you weren't trying to be offensive, it does help you realize where that line is too, right? So
Yeah, like
like
bumper plates on a bowling alley.
right, exactly. You just kind of like, okay, like maybe I'll avoid, like I said something like early COVID about like wearing booties at an open house that's been or like a shitty house is equivalent to people wearing masks in their cars or something like that. Like, whatever. It was worded better when I said it. But this is like early COVID. And people were just like, oh my God, like you're an anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, like you're a COVID denier, like all this shit. And I was like, I'm not at all.
Right.
I just was making the analogy. And then people are like, no, like, hospital workers, they don't want to touch their face. So when they're driving back, they will like wear it in their cars. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even think about that. But it's that type of shit where
I
you're
had
just
an
kind of like,
experience like that where I was aggressively commenting on
mhm.
anything that was related to the ski industry,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
any hashtag
That's a
ski
strategy.
anything,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I would
you were
just,
there.
if someone asked a question in like Lindsey Vaughn's post about of her working out,
You were there.
I was responding to it. Like I was just doing that strategy, which
Yeah.
I backed off from. But
Uh-huh.
there was one thing where someone was doing something, like a professional skier was doing an exercise, and someone had asked like, oh, that's interesting, why are they doing it that way? And so I hit this like fat paragraph answer with like all the technical terms and everything, basically saying like, hey, come check us out because we explain this stuff. And I didn't know who the person was or what it was, or didn't I you're obviously not looking at every account when you do that because you're just going for volume. And I got this like you can only type so much in a message, and I had like 9 of those messages
Oh
in
my
a
God.
row telling me that I was like mansplaining exercise and I was being inconsiderate towards female athletes and like all this stuff. And I 100% was not. I didn't even know that the person that I commented on was a female. They were just a bubble, right, with a
Yeah,
question.
you didn't even look. You were just firing off comments.
And the person that responded, the message wasn't even the person that I responded to. There was someone
Right.
else who had been reading through or probably saw the account on multiple accounts responding to stuff. But to your point, it kind of like, in that moment, I was like, I'm not in the business of truly offending anyone.
Hmm.
Like I'm only trying to provide information in these instances.
Yeah.
But the fact that someone could take it that way made me go back and read through how it was said. I didn't fully understand at the end of the day because I don't think that it warranted that, but it did show me where that like it's like where the spectrum is on both sides of like
Yeah,
where you're being obnoxious and where you're providing good information or how to be
exactly.
sensitive towards certain things. And then that changed. It was that moment, which sucked, that then changed the entire redirection of the strategy going forward and
Hmm.
ended up being a net positive.
Yeah. You could evolve based off of comments for sure. Like it is hard to read them all and see what people's reactions are, but once you like internalize that, you could actually adapt to it and be like, okay, like people aren't digging this type of content. This one got 50 comments, or someone rolled their eyes. One eye roll, that's also brutal. Like just someone, the eye roll emoji, you're just like, oh fuck. Like you're
I
that
can just
annoyed.
picture you with your dream catcher in the background and your dog and
Oh my
Pusheen
God.
and
I always take that thing down.
Pusheen too.
This is the guest room, by the way.
Oh,
Block it.
nice.
Yeah, block that thing out.
This is also the guest room, by the
Okay.
way.
Yeah. Blur
So
this thing out the entire time.
yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. Well,
And post
dude, I
production.
mean, it's already been an hour and a half. I knew that would go very
Damn.
quickly.
Yep.
I'll finish with a couple of just like random questions. What do you think is the best thing about the real estate industry? And what do you think is the thing that has to change tomorrow that absolutely sucks?
I think the best thing is now people are producing educational, funny content. I think realtors have kind of gotten over themselves. And I think the broke agent had a lot to do with this, not to toot my own horn, but I think like they realize like if I'm authentic and I'm posting educational, funny content, people are going to react to this positively. So I think that's the best aspect. The worst aspect, I don't know. I think maybe like there's a big fear of like tech companies right now of like Zillow taking over and like buying houses and Redfin taking over and buying houses, and a lot of complaining going on and saying like, we're fucked. Like a lot of people are kind of fear mongering that this industry is not going to be around for a while and that you don't need real estate agents. So I think that's like a huge negative output feedback to what's going on with Zillow and Redfin, as opposed to just combating it and just like crushing your real estate business.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's again similar to the training industry. People are worried that like training is going to go away because there's like Tonal and Peloton and
Right.
all the at-home stuff. And like at the end of the day, people want, in a lot of cases, they might want to get information and technical stuff from elsewhere. But a lot of people, when it really comes down to like making a decision, especially one like a home, which is so much greater
Mm-hmm.
than training, it's that personal relationship. Like,
Yep.
do I trust Eric? And you don't really get that from just straight up technology services.
Yeah.
It's different to have a personal relationship with someone where they actually are sharing an experience with you when you go and look at the house, or they
Mm-hmm.
know about it in a way that they grew up in the neighborhood their whole life or something. They can just speak to parts that like maybe a Zillow or something won't be able to in a real way.
Yeah, like I have the stealth ad machine, that thing where you just
You do
do
not.
bridges on.
I don't
And
think that. Do you
you were better
actually
than
have it?
the,
Do you
yeah.
actually have it?
I mean, yeah, it's like
That's
a game. I put my phone in, I could play like Star Galactica, move side to side.
Oh man, I thought that like when I thought there was value there and things you would keep for the rest of your life, and now you
No,
have a 6-minute ab machine.
no, do you know what it is?
I don't. What
Okay,
is
the
it?
stealth, it looks like a stealth bomber, and you just put your elbows on it, and you move
Yeah.
like side to side in abs, and then
Okay.
like you can move because the game is like pointing you in different directions.
Wait. Oh, it is a video game. You weren't joking. It's
Well,
an actual video game. Well, oh, okay. I see. You put your phone on it. Your phone senses the motion.
exactly,
You've
exactly.
gamified this stealth bomber ab machine. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Continue. I understand.
That's it. That's it.
Oh,
So
that's it.
yeah, I mean, it was relevant to what we were talking about, wasn't it?
I,
You were
I
saying
in
you could be
hindsight,
replaced by machines, the
fair.
ab, and I said I have this stealth, and I said I don't get as good as a ab workout as I did back at Equinox.
And I appreciate that because
Yeah,
it makes my time feel worthwhile.
right,
Well,
exactly.
Eric, it's always a pleasure talking with you, man.
Yeah,
I think it's watching this thing grow over the past 4, 5, 6, I don't even know, since 2014.
yeah,
It's been awesome. It's inspiring for me. There's a lot of things that I try to emulate in the things that I do. Ironically, after the roles have switched here,
yeah, exactly.
but I'm stoked to see it continue to grow and get more exposure as you guys roll out more products. I know for a fact that you are going to fucking crush it.
Thank
So
you.
where can people find you? Give the shameless product plug.
Yes, at the broke agent on everything, on social, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. You can find me
Personal account?
Dr. 16 if you want to see, my Hacksaw Ridge joke. That's the place to go. Bad real estate picks. If you want to look at bad real estate picks on Instagram, the Overask Podcast on Instagram at Overask Podcast, thebrokeagentstore.com if you want to get merch, thebrokeagent.com landing page if you want to get some real estate templates. And what else do I have? The book Commission Impossible. If you want to read
The greatest name. I'm going to buy it just because I think that's the greatest name for a book ever.
The name is, and it's called Commission Impossible Rogue Agent.
Do we know a price point on that?
Who knows? Amazon probably marked it down to like 50 cents at this point.
Bastards.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, dude, the man, the myth, the legend, Eric Simon, creator of the Broke Agent, legendary funny guy in the game. Absolutely hilarious, super fit, very strong. It was a pleasure talking with you, man. I look forward to it again in the future.
Definitely.